Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Submitted for Your Approval, the weekly card review show for Collective, the community-created card game where you make the cards. You, specifically you. I'm joined today by my faithful co-host, Grief.
Howdy, folks. Yes, there's a bathrobe.
And my less be-robed co-host, Empty Folder.
Hello, everyone.
Okie doke. So I'm just going to jump straight into it. With these are accepted submissions. These cards are in the game. So if you want to play with them, you can, but not in like standard mode until it rotates in, like in like Coliseum or something. Starting with Transpose is a 1-drop neutral action from Gemmel. With fast and discard a card, choose to draw a card that costs 1 less or 1 more than that card. So first of all, he's got the whole world in his hands, and his fingers are splayed a little bit like this, which I don't know what the deal is with that, but whatever. I think this is a really, really neat card, a really, really neat consistency tool. There's definitely a lot of stuff you can do with this in terms of just deck building, deck manipulation type stuff. I think it's weird that these are the kind of tutors that actually are able to make it into Collective. Like, we don't get hard tutors, we get like Transpose. But sure, fine. I'm happy with it. Grief, what do you think of this?
It's basically a cute little tutor that plays around with cost searching or cost filtering, similar to, what was it, dualism that we had way back when in the past. So this would probably find a niche, depending on deck you're playing. If you're playing an aggro deck, maybe you don't really need something that is on a higher curve, or actually need something that's like, oh yeah, I have to find my 4-drop, so I just discard my 3-drop because it doesn't really do anything in this situation. And it also allows it to maybe run more silver bullet-ish cards. The problem is, though, depending on the cost range that you're drawing cards from, this may or may not actually get what you want.
It's neutral, so I feel like it slots into there are a lot of different places to use it. And I don't know. I feel like more consistency tools are a big plus for me. I like to see cards like this. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, it's like a neat little tutor effect. When the next time like we get some combo decks in standard, they will definitely be happy to have this. But for now, like, it's just a neat card that you might see in some sort of niche scenarios. Pretty good Brick tool as well, just because it's the 1-cost action that replaces, well, I mean, it doesn't replace itself exactly, but it does give you a bit of options to draw into your removal or something.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this kind of tool could afford to have rebound, but maybe that's just me asking for too much. I don't know.
That might be too much.
Yes.
I mean, if you really want your hand size to stay up, like, you can always discard something with rebound and get some more value out of it.
Yeah, and I suppose there are a couple ways like giving something rebound. By the way, I picked on it. I really do like this art. I think this is a good example of AI generated art. Moving on. Priest of the Sludge is a 3-drop spirit 3/2 ooze cultist arcanist from Saga. With duelist and summon, destroy an ally used and return it to play. I just typed Space Turtle. So there's so many different feelings that art can evoke in a person. We were talking before the show started about how AI art is starting to invoke rage in people. You know, you can have this spike bird that just gives you the sense of cool. Space Turtles art just makes me happy, and this is a great example of that. Like, I look at him and I'm like, it's a friend. He's friend-shaped. But effect-wise, definitely cool. It has a lot of cool means. It's sort of a mini Grave Rave type effect where you can proc a bunch of Entomb triggers and just fiddle with stuff. Really, really neat. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine card. It fits right into the deck. Oozes are like all about Entombs and Grave Rave type effects. So having one that's like on brand and in their tribes works great. And of course, duelists are like always nice to have. They're always relevant. I think it'll still just be included into the deck immediately. It's good support for it.
Yeah. Grief, what do you think of this?
You're saying this is a friend. I mean, yeah, sure. It's a cultist that sacrifices its allies to just bring them back from the dead. This is basically some very happy tree friends code of the lamp bullshit we're looking at right here. I think that's also the inspiration.
I've been playing through Cult of the Lamb also. I definitely agree. But yeah, effect-wise, I think it's just solid utility, right? I mean, it's very straightforward. It tells you what deck to run it in and tells you how to run it. But it also gives you, a little bit of a duelist and some other stuff.
Yep.
Great card. And whoop. Looks like we're having some technical issues. Did I miss something up? I don't know what's going on, and I'm not gonna be able to fix this. Oh, wait a sec. I think I found it.
I think that it's Rose Court Coercion, right?
Yeah. I think we're just gonna skip over it.
Yeah.
But Rose
Man, that's
Coercion,
bizarre.
you made it on to submitted, but we're having some technical issues.
Yeah, the link's just not working. I like copied it somewhere else and retried it.
Okay. Yeah, so probably just button issues. Rose Coercion, we are very sorry. You got selected. But we weren't able to talk about you.
Yeah, it wasn't in the cards.
Okay. Starting now with these cards are different than the other cards, and that these cards you can't put them in decks yet, unless it's like Card Creator. But you can vote them in, and then they'll be in other formats. Starting with To Seek Freedom is a 2-drop Mind Ambition from Aesthetica with create 2 1/1 fading agile copies of an ally, and plan you may bounce an ally and make it cost 1 less. Absolutely great result from Stable Diffusion on the art front. Very much feels Aesthetica. Uses the plan mechanic that luckily, thankfully, we got 2 in last time, and they were from the designer of Plan, who's probably the guy who most deserved to get them in. But this particular design makes me so happy. It feels very Aesthetica in both art and mechanics. Gives you a chance to proc a whole bunch of entrance triggers and just overall do some really cool stuff. Empty, what do you think of this card?
I think this is a very important card for the Aesthetica deck right now, because they don't have a lot of ways to like reliably re-trigger those entrance effects. And what this gives you is, yeah, sometimes it's going to be inefficient, like bouncing one of your own allies, even if it costs 1 less. Like that's going to cost you some mana and some tempo, obviously. But at the same time, like you always have an option to re-trigger your entrance or summon effects every turn. And it's not something your opponent can remove, or you can run out of like ways to do it, which is something that the deck really has a problem with, because there's not that many ways to re-trigger the entrances right now. And some of the ones that there are, like they can just get removed pretty easily. So yeah, I think this is a great design, good use of plan, and very important card for the Aesthetica deck.
Yeah, I know in single player modes at least, being able to get like your Sinister Dove, or whatever the name of the bird thing was, getting him back out, netting a couple extra draws. Obviously, if you want to play like more fair versions of some of the other Aesthetica combo decks, having a couple consistency tools there to reproc stuff would be neat.
Yeah.
Grief, what do you think of this?
It's an interesting tool that you can probably utilize in Legacy as well, considering that you can also target entrance units that will just trigger off of being copies. That you can run into something like that, for into any kind of deck that you're sure that you want to utilize this. It's sure, okay, that's cool and all. But outside of combo shenanigans where you want to re-trigger entrance effects or maybe leave play effects, The first ability doesn't really come out too often. The plan effect is iffy. Sure, you can utilize it for some very interesting retriggering of summons, etc. Or maybe for some combo loops. But the problem is that the -1 cost effect doesn't really apply permanently. Therefore, you don't really have ways to do some bounce loops, etc. Overall, it's a very interesting concept for standard. For legacy, it may be a little bit on the too not fair but too balanced side to actually see mileage out of it.
I'm so glad we moved away from bounce discounts being permanent. This would break so easily if that was permanent.
Of course. That's why this card is very fair.
So that's why you just but empty in single player, I'm just gonna use this to bounce my solar snack.
That's single player and legacy stuff. It can be broken there. That's fine.
Okay, the Bunny Performer is a 2-drop neutral 1/3 human rabbit from nowhere in particular with active shuffle a card from your hand into your deck, draw a card that costs less. This is tostalmo, so when we're talking about Flavorland, we're just out in space. I do really enjoy how this, by the way, and Toast admits this in the card name, was made as like a test art. I do think it's funny that dressed as a rabbit, as the flavor text confirms, but has the rabbit tribe, which I have no idea how one does that. I am just so dressed as a rabbit that my species just changes. The effect is interesting, and I want to like this card more. I just feel that it's too slow. Like, this is the start of the turn, and being able to still use the unit, I think would be really useful in Dune Walkers, get it out early, have a means to get some extra cards. It's also weirdly inconsistent because you draw a card that costs less, but that could cost any amount less, which is an issue. But I could definitely see possibly someone using this in maybe like Fortuno, because they already discount a lot of cards. So you could shuffle like a 1 cost, and then if you have a card that like slipped under 1, then you could do that. I don't know. It's quirky. But it shuffles your deck, which is something Fortuna doesn't necessarily want. Grief, what do you think of this?
I'm not drunk enough to actually comprehend this artwork.
I think this is one of Toast's like best arts, honestly. It's got a lot more detail put into it. I could tell that this piece clearly like took a lot of effort. I just think it's funny that it's actually a rabbit. Like, it is cosplaying so hard that it has defined itself as part of that tribe.
I feel like that's not the first time that's happened. There's got to be at least one other card that's like cosplaying as something and it actually has the tribe.
Probably.
No, I'm basically just a little bit, not that I'm prude, I'm just kind of confused. Why are we putting someone in with fishnet stockings and a pin-up bunny girl costume into an artwork?
Well, and honestly, not as bad. This isn't Lakeside Seductress, okay?
Neon lights.
We've definitely gone further into the realm of like Lakeside Seductress is a card.
No, I'm not talking about that. It's just why?
Okay, but the effect though.
The effect is like a nothing burger. To be honest, okay, you shuffle a card from your hand into your deck and draw a card that costs less. That's a cute consistency tool on a 2-drop that has an active. Yeah, it's not really the most interesting card, to be honest.
Well, yeah, but I think it would be neat if it was maybe like starter turn, or where's this sitting? Let's talk about it in context first. Sitting at 3, so it's doing kind of okay, but I agree with what you're saying that it's a little bit too slow, and it needs.
Yeah, for this week, that's pretty good.
Yeah, Empty, what do you think of this?
It's a very confusing design. I'm not really sure like what it's trying to do. The whole like a lot of the pieces just don't make that much sense together.
I agree.
And it's really slow. Like this, like you said, starter turn would be good. maybe making this a 1-drop and having it lose a stat point. Just
That's
Yeah.
spicy. One or the other. I both would be too much, I think.
yeah, both might be too much.
I think this
But,
being 2 and start of
yeah.
the turn is the way to go. And then maybe shuffle up to 1, but that might not fit. I don't know. Otherwise, I do think it's interesting in the way that it's a little perplexing, but also just I think it's one of the better toast arts. I think toast is getting really good.
I feel like it's perplexing for the wrong reasons. It's sort of
Yeah.
like, why is this like this? It's not
Probably.
perplexing like, what can I do with this?
But I mean, like the flavor text, the flavor text and the title on the actual Reddit post indicates to me that yeah, this is probably just a throwaway design. But I'm trying to believe that everything that's being passed at us, I'm supposed to take semi-seriously, right? I don't know.
No. If you want to really take something semi-seriously, just go back, look at the face of that character, and you already know this is some I have no mouth, but I must screams level of bullshit going on.
That was your reaction, though. Your reaction was this when you saw the card.
Like, yeah, I can kind of feel the same how that character feels.
Scrapped is a 4-drop strength action for Mortstall, Realm of the Dead Things. With destroy a unit and both players draw a card. So there are dozens and dozens of collective cards that just pass by me all the time. I used to be a lot more on top of it. I'm not really anymore. Do we really just have so many removals now that people think this is a bad idea? Do people think this is too strong, too weak? What? I personally thought this was a cool design, and I like making opponents doing the both draw strap, but this is sitting at 0. And that perplexed me, and that's why I wanted to talk about that. Empty, what do you think of this?
I think it's just very unnecessary. There's like only so many basic single target removals you can have in standard at one time before they just overlap with each other too much. And yeah, it has like the both players draw a card, but that's not like that big of a difference between this and like the other just hard removal cards. And that's kind of the only problem with it. Maybe like next rotation, we can have something like this again. I am glad that Corn has finally upped it to 4 mana, so it actually fits in line with the rest of our removal curve. But yeah,
I would go with that. I like that idea. This does notably neg 1 you, but I see what you're saying. I thought that might have been the case, that there were just too many single target removals in standard currently. Grief, what do you think of this?
This is Demon Heart that draws both players a card. I think we've seen that already some months ago. Maybe not, but it feels pretty samey to something we've probably seen in the past.
Which is probably a big influence.
At this point, yeah, removal suits are pretty oversaturated. It's like, cool, another one to the pile of other cards that do the same thing.
Definitely. Okie dokie then. The Roseblood Painting is a 3-drop strength curio from Mortstall, Realm of the Dead Things, with draw a card with blood in the name and a card with rose in the name. Not much to say about this. Interesting to see Prose Painter. I mean, it's always nice to see, you know, some different stuff. And I do feel it's a pretty nice piece itself. I like curios. I mean, I've done this to death, right? I've explained to people that I'm not a big fan personally of cards referencing names in the thing, and I think this is like maybe like the quirkiest version of that. Honestly, I like this a little bit better for the most part, except for one thing. And that's the thing is, this thing has a chance to draw itself twice, because the name of the card itself contains rose and contains blood. Which means this could just be a draw 2 cards with, draw a card with, which is not, I mean, it's maybe unlikely, but I feel like the fact that this card can draw itself is maybe an issue. It's hard for me to evaluate because
Yeah.
I have biases. I've explained my biases. Grief, what do you think of this?
Yeah, the thing is like it's weird. It's interesting that it can actually draw itself twice. So basically, yeah, it's a draw 2 that allows you to then play another draw 2 that could actually chain into something else. Because if you're playing a blood deck, you're playing a shit ton of cards that have the name blood or rose card or whatever in their name. So you will always have some form of targets and maybe even occasionally hitting this one. It's funny, you can basically also build like that, where your only cards that are named Rose are Rose Blood paintings, and the rest of your deck is called Blood, and still end up with 2 Rose Blood paintings in hand. And then turn it just into a draw 1, which hurts, but whatever. But if you actually if you actually dial down, okay, how do you want to filter this kind of effect? Like, okay, do you make it so that it cannot draw itself? So at this point, should it cost less? Should it cost the same? Is that actually a drawback? Is this a better filter because you can never run into? So the discussions will probably never end. Overall, I think it's the best middle road that you can take, as is, with a 3 cost that has potential to just draw 2 copies of itself. But yeah, basically, this is just another consistency tool, like the rose card cards. I think like the card that we couldn't actually talk about got into this week. So yeah, it's just more blood consistency.
Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I'm pretty neutral on the whole like name matters thing. I think it just depends how it's done. And I think this is a pretty fine implementation of it. The one problem I have with this card is that it can draw itself on both halves. Like you can try and run this as a tutor, but sometimes you're just gonna get screwed and draw more copies of it. And like we're kind of in a standard environment where like the value is really not what you want. You really need some tempo, especially like, I mean, what are you going to be running this in? It's probably like trying to run this in Proma, and Proma is like really bad right now. It's just not in a good spot.
Yeah, this is sitting at 2, but I mean, the past couple weeks have been so lackluster on just the front here that it's kind of hard to say what's gonna happen. I mean, I didn't think we'd be getting chairs in last time, and chairs we got, so who's to say? The Unfortunate Oracle is a 3-drop Spirit 2/3 Daemon Arcanist from Swiatlo with Duelist, and when this deals damage, increase the cost of a random card in opponent's hand by 1. I am so glad to see Puopka coming back with more Swiatlo designs. I missed the realm, and these are really, really cool. The effect is really, really neat. Just a nice utility kind of thing. And it's got a lot of style in the art, and I really, really enjoy that. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I'm glad Daylings are back too, and I like this direction for them a lot more than the old one. Sort of like this weird like hand manipulation thing. They have this one, and then there's the one that like increases the cost of the next action your opponent plays. I'm really eager to see what sort of other effects Puopka goes for with this direction. I'm really hoping there's going to be like a few synergy cards for like your opponent's stuff costing more that can actually like benefit from it. But we'll see. As for this card, I think this is like a solid design and a good implementation of that idea.
Greaves, what do you think of this?
This is basically just upgraded Otherworld Warrior, which was when it actually dealt damage to your opponent or when it attacked. It increased one random card in your opponent's hands or one random actions costs in your opponent's hand by 1. So that's neat to actually see this kind of mechanic back. I love the direction that Green Aliens went way back when, which actually tried to do this stuff of taxing your opponent's cards in hand. The problem is it's very inconsistent. You have to do some more blanket effects, or have to be more have to be able to trigger them more consistently, or at high with higher cost increases. So this will probably fall into the same category where this is cool on paper, but in practice, this is like the first duelist that you replace for a better one.
Mm-hmm. There's in a different game, in a slightly different card pool, where we had more means to do like things like frenzy, or things like make this able to deal damage outside of combat multiple times per turn. This would be really, really stylish, and it would be more up my speed. As is, I still think it's a really just solid sort of a mid-rangey control tool. I want to break this card, but there's just no cards out there to break it. But that's just how I approach card games, so that's me. I do think it's just a very, very neat, very, very clean design, and it was worth highlighting. And it's sitting at like 4, so it's gonna do good. The Curse of Wandering is a 1-drop mind action from Vin Garden with Home of the Hammer Mage, with give an allied unit before combat, banish this until end of turn. So I feel like I like Toast. I like the original Hammer Mage. This recent stuff with Vin Garden has been giving me sort of a headache. It's like a mishmash of random tropes spread across Magic with its this is the Wanderer. I mean, this is Curse of Wandering. This is Hammer Mage is now the Wanderer, with also a smattering of what I do believe is Yu-Gi-Oh tropes, where you have like 8 different flavors of the same basic thing. But it might just be, maybe it's not quite that. I feel like I've definitely seen it before, but I feel like Vin Garden as a whole is kind of one note, but I like the story, right? I like the character. I like the rest of that stuff going on around it. I just don't think the realm tag is all that necessary personally. But as far as the actual card, this is really, really cool. I love entrance. I love being able to banish something and return it. I think it's something like Zurael might be able to make good use of. And so I think this is a really, really solid design, even though it does make it so you can't attack anymore. Grief, what do you think of this?
It's interesting if you have some kind of ward control engine tool. I mean, you could technically put that on a Lucy for you, on a Lucy. So blinking it out before combat, blinking it back in, or, well, in that case, it's not really that helpful. But you see the line that I'm thinking of, like, okay, you have a ward unit. Oh, its ward gets popped. Just put this on there before combat. It just re-enables ward, maybe as an entrance effect, whatever. Maybe a helpful active, and so on and so forth. Yeah, this is a cute little effect. We'll probably have its usage here and there for some niche interactions for control decks, but outside of that, maybe some big trick trigger. That's basically it. In terms of lore, I mean, walking around with a different costume, I think Curse of Wandering is the best way to explain a hangover and collective migraine. To not remember what you actually did last night. It was pretty damn good. Because let's be honest, for me, Vin Garden feels like Hammer Mage is probably a party animal that gets so blank out drunk.
Oh yeah, it's not unreasonable to interpret that as Wine Garden, right?
Let's be honest, this Hammer Mage is just some wasted otaku cosplayer.
The redacted mentioned in the flavor text is just a comic convention. So It's just Comic-Con.
Exactly.
What do you think of this?
Yeah, so I quite like Vingarden. It's really fun seeing the same character like adapted to every realm, and then the mechanics change to match the realm too. As for this card itself, I think kind of the only problem with it is that we have Mist Bomb, which just does its job so much better. I think this needs like Rebound or like something else to make it at least on par with Mist Bomb, so you have a reason to like run both. But as it is, it just feels kind of weak. It's a neat idea. It just needs a bit of a buff.
Oh, this isn't. This is just a one-off
No,
flicker.
it's a one-off flicker.
Oh,
Yeah. If
I
it was
missed
permanent,
that.
that would be a lot better.
The flavor standpoint, like, had convinced me that this card said permanently. This card doesn't say permanently. Oh boy, yeah, I like this a lot less now. Yeah, this is just worse. This isn't even Vanishing Act.
It's a blink, a delayed
It's a
one.
It's a single blank.
So yeah, no, I think it's a flicker. Oh,
Well, yeah, but it's like okay, but it's like the flavor of the card and what I know about, and I'm gonna put this in big hefty air quotes, Hammer Mage lore up until this point had convinced me that, oh, this character has the Curse of the Wanderer from MTG, and as a result, is just gonna keep doing this teleporting around thing. But no, that is not in fact what is happening.
I thought we already established it's some weird cosplayer. They believe it's a curse, but he honestly just got hammered.
But yeah. Okay, with all that in mind, yeah, I don't see why this is even doing as good as it's doing, because we have other tools that do like the same thing but better in every format. Now, if somebody could maybe update this to say permanently, I would not object. So I still kind of maybe hope that this gets in, because I think we haven't been using all of our update slots, or at least we weren't a week ago. The Wicker Slug is a 2-drop neutral 0/5 wax slug from Lux. With when this is targeted by a card, move this to your hand. Oh, so this is similar to yeah. Okay, I wanted to do a design similar to this before. This is goofy. I'm sure there's a point to it, but I can't discern that point immediately. So I'm just gonna cut immediately to cool, neat art. Empty, what did you think of this card? Why did you pick it?
It's a very confusing card. It's so weird. It's like, so the idea behind like having a thing where when it's targeted, you move it to hand is that it can like dodge removal and stuff. But who's ever gonna remove this? It's an 0/5 for 2 mana. It's like dot food, and that's basically it. I mean, that text is like a pretty big downside sometimes, because if you're playing against like Brick or something, they can easily just blank this. Or against like Candies, you're just wasting your mana. I think this needs a bit of a rework.
Okay, so I was right in discerning that I don't really get the point behind this. Grief, what do you think of this?
The question is, I have to basically look at test that out again, because I forgot what the correct answer to this is. What is our engine rules for resolution of effects?
When I was working with what do you call it? It never got in, but Quickfoot. I made an effect, and if it was blocked similarly to how Quickfoot resolves, you will actually see, and you will almost never see this in this game, a no targets flash, and then nothing will happen. The card will just, that part of the effect will be countered.
The thing is like, when it comes to
that's how this card works.
That the thing is like, with this, when we actually have a condition, okay, like destroy a unit, then do this. If the card doesn't specify that he has to actually destroy the card, okay, it targeted the Wicker Slug, didn't do anything because the Wicker Slug actually returned to hand. The destroying of the unit didn't happen. You still draw the card. That's what I meant. Do cards resolve completely, or do they fizzle out when they cannot resolve their effects correctly?
Its target is now undefined, so anything it would do to its target doesn't work. And I think the card also fizzles.
The things like what it does to the target is irrelevant. The question is more like, does the rest of the effect still resolve?
Yeah, I think the answer is no, but I'm not personally sure.
If the answer is yes, this is your use case where you have some self-target stuff that has the drawback that doesn't really care, and where you don't really care about Wicker Slugs being returned to hand or stuff like that, just to get an upside, because it does so on its own.
The only use cases I can think of for that are like Rock Slide, and About to Snap, but the buff also would go away. So,
but the thing is, like, yeah, if it's something like draw a card or gain life or something like that, as long as it doesn't really care about completely resolving every step of the effect, then maybe that's a use case. Outside of that, the only use, funny enough, is in the card pool that we're currently running for the events. Because at that perspective, this would make more sense. But that's an event card for.
See, I just want like a yellow corded telephone, and I just want to pull it out, and it's just going to have one button on it, and it's going to say Corn. And it's just going to call up Corn and ask him what he was thinking when he made some of these designs. Because he's great. I love the guy. But he comes up with these every now and again where I'm like, you are seeing the true nature of the universe that I am not. And I just want to know, like, what am I missing? But of course, this is submitted for your approval. So I'm going to get a Discord ping in an hour, and Corn will tell me. So it'll get fixed.
Let's move on.
Working on it. Time Corruptor Achron is a 10-drop neutral 7/7 demon horror object from Alter Chrona with agile, regenerate, overrun, and summon. The first time this summon is triggered, jinx all cards in the opponent's deck, and end of turn double the number of jinxes the top card of the opponent's deck has. Definitely a card with telegraphed intent. The second you play this thing down, people are like, okay, they're closing out the game now. They want to hit me really hard. Well, I guess it's weird because it's like it's agile overrun, so you're trying to hit them really hard. But also, Achron needs to survive if your hope is to win via jinxes. Definite style points, but I don't really know. It's hard for me to just give a straight valuation on this. Grief, what do you think of this?
To say this, to put it probably in the simplest terms, like, this is definitely one of the cards of all time. Why? Yeah, okay, you have a beat stick that has agile overrun and regenerate for 10. And I think for 99% of the time, it's the reason you're using it. Because if you're building a jinx deck, if this is your win condition, you should have built a better jinx deck. Because jinx is basically a Teemo-styled puff mushroom burn deck that is similar to traps, but kind of better because it's not just skipping the middleman, it's just putting in the burn damage right on the cards. Yeah. Jinx all cards in your opponent's deck, cool. Doubling the triggers of jinx, doubling the amount of jinxes on the top of the card of your opponent's deck, like, whatever. At this point, you've probably burned them out anyway, or nearly burned them out when you're dropping this dude for 10 mana. And if you're cheating him out, you're getting even less results out of him, because yeah, his end of turn trigger still functions, but you still have to have a very high amount of jinxes on the top card that your opponent is drawing next turn, meaning you have to actually combo this with any other card. So this means you have to pay more mana, which only makes sense in the following turn, but this dude has Agile and Overrun and is a 7 attack unit.
Let me sell it to you like this. Suppose we were trying to make this into an Alter Chrono Jinx win con.
I think that's very simple. You just drop the costs and make this not a big beat stick for some random reason.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was what I was kind of gonna go into, is like, how low do we think, like 6-ish, and then get rid of all the keywords except for generate, kind of thing?
Yeah. Like the thing is, the first or not the first two, the last two effects, like the summon and that end of turn, like those are both what Jinx wants to do.
Yeah.
Like you're getting a big payoff, you're jinxing every card in your opponent's deck, so they're consistently taking damage for you to close out the game, and then you're doubling whatever they have, so all those other jinxes that you've built up throughout the game are more effective. The problem is you're doing that on it's on a 10 cost card. It's just the game's over by then. Why are you doing this?
This is, I mean, voice chat usually gets a lot of flack for, oh yeah, this is a Yu-Gi-Oh card design. But let's come on, this is the most Yu-Gi-Oh boss archetype monster that I've ever seen. A huge damn beat stick, funny enough, not a dragon like most other Yu-Gi-Oh boss monsters are, that does something actually useful for the archetype, but on an outlandish cost and stat-based to the point where this would be cool if it wouldn't be on this card.
Yeah. I kind of see what you got. Yeah. I personally agree that this card needs a little bit of a shift in direction to be one thing it is or the other thing it is, and probably being the Jinx thing would be a lot cooler.
Yeah.
And finishing, definitely finishing after this one. Voidy Boy's Big Day is a 3-drop mine 0/3 story from nowhere in particular with can attack, can't block, and chronicle. Here's how a chronicle effect works. When this enters play, play its first chapter. While in play at the start of each turn, play the next chapter. Okay, to be clear, like, I have a whole bunch of sagas in my MTG cube. I think sagas are a really, really fun card type. I think this is a really, really weird, pretty bad implementation of sagas. The use of the saga effect in the cost is probably a little Personally, I think it would be at least a little bit better if it was in the card name itself. Just in the event that people are confused about what triggers when, it helps to be able, and you could just do it in Roman numerals, right? Like 1, a happy stroll, 2, ooh, a chest. But I personally just don't like this pseudo enchantment thing. It's a personal bias, and I think this is kind of a crummy implementation of the effect. And why Voidy Boy? Like, I don't personally think that guy's been in the limelight for a long, long time, and I don't see why he's the focus of this card. I don't even see why this really has much to do with him. And then, of course, the confusion some people had about destroy this card's creator on the third effect, which refers to destroy the card that created this card, not destroy the player that created this card. MT, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I like sagas as well. I don't think, like, it would be difficult to make them fit well in collective. Like, you'd have to jump through a lot of hoops, and I don't think this is even the best implementation that they could have. It just doesn't work that well on like this little unit like this. And like the whole wording and way it works is sort of confusing too.
Definitely. Grief, what do you think of this?
I feel I've been so negative that we should probably call this episode submitted for your disapproval to just take out our competition.
You're out there working for the competition, Greg.
No, I was scouting them out. That's why I was so nice. But yeah, you said that after this card, we're done with this episode, and this is basically the saga as card. But after going through this novel over card, I feel this is a tragedy. And I would have hoped it would have ended on a cliffhanger. This card is so bad, and sorry. I really like your tostalmo and Zinker, but first of all, why this fucking keyword bloat shit with mechanics functions? I mean, we've been through this discussion a lot where we introduce new keywords, new mechanics, something more outlandish. Now we have plan in the game and so on and so forth. Everything cute and all. But when it comes to stuff like Chronicle, which is basically just a mechanics bloat card to make custom saga things that do not even make a good iteration, make not even good imitation of that principle. Because yeah, we have some limitations engine-wise, but there are better ways to do this. And highlighting it with like some of the most lackluster payoffs and confusing saga ultimate effects I've ever seen in the last 2 to 3 months. This is a terrible showing, and I think this also will kind of sour the impression of Chronicle as a mechanic moving forward. We had certain instances like that where bad cards actually influencing interesting design avenues, but this needs to go back to the drawing board. And from all the cards we had today, this is one of the very first cards. Go back to the drawing board with it and scratch it out, start anew with a new concept.
Yeah. And the other thing, one of the other things with this is I don't feel it does what sagas really do well either. Like, so a lot of the sagas in Magic have a very clear through line, so they feel like a connected card. And here we have like the Scour 3 and the Draw 2, and like, so I guess it's like trying to build up your hand to do some hand sculpting, and then to give your units a bunch of attacks. I don't really see what that has to do with Voidy Boy. The Scour effect maybe, but like the flavorful through line and the mechanical through line don't match. The end of the effect just seems really weird. Like, I don't know why we're now moving like forward into this like attack graining thing in a. Okay, I'm convincing myself. I mean, it's like a mind aggro thing, but I don't know. The whole thing just feels like disconnected and weird, and the implementation just feels like not even the best saga-like thing. We've seen other saga-like things. We've talked about them on the show before, and this doesn't do it. I want to be able to say nicer things about this card because I'm a big fan of tostalmo, but yeah, sorry.
The art is cute.
The art is cute. I can say that. The art is cute. Thank you so much for watching us today. Thank you very much to my co-host for joining me. Grief, I know you couldn't be bothered to get out of your bathrobe, but still thank you.
No, I'm on vacation. I don't even give a shit anymore.
And thank you, Empty, as always, for joining me. When you join me.
It's good to be back for the second week.
Yeah.
Let's hope we can keep up a bit of a streak this time.
I actually have plans
next week. Next week I won't be here because I will hopefully hosting the special event tournament on Sunday.
Special event tournament.
Yes. All the registration info can be found on Discord. You just have to click on the links. You can register for any of the 3-day tournaments on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from the 9th to the 11th. Every one of these tournaments are starting at 18 CEST, and registration ends on Thursday, 23:59 CEST. So I hope I'll see you there. That was a non-shameless plug I've ever seen one.
So like, comment, and subscribe. Remind us why we keep doing this. Some of us may have forgotten. I'm not going to say who. And keep on playing and keep on creating cards. Bye.
Bye.